It was a night out on the town for a Greensboro area mother of 5. She's very young, and possibly her last communication was a 911 call, or was it? All that and what it means for your weekend on the Comm Center.
Wake Up America, it's the Comm Center with Drew Breezy. It's a TV show on the internet about two best friends who are called by a small town sheriff to investigate a 15-year-old charismatic cult leader who seems to possess the uncanny ability of remote bedwetting. I'm John. I'm an actual 911 dispatcher. I've been doing this job just shy of 10 years. So I'm taking actual 911 calls in my community. Joining us as our host is an authentic cop. He's Drew Breezy. He was a police officer or sheriff's deputy for almost 29 years, detective, did all kinds of things. On this show, we break down 911 calls, talk about problems, issues, get insight from the pros, and we're going to apply it to this true crime case. Drew, I'm just going to go right into the 911 call.
Go for it.
Guilford Metro 911, what's the address of your emergency?
Yes, ma'am, I needed to contact to the non-emergency number.
It comes into the same center. I can try to help you while I have you on the phone, and I can give you the
Okay,
number for
yes,
future use.
I don't know where I am in Greensboro. I just got all my stuff throughout the car. He took off with my phone. I have no clue where I'm at. I have no numbers, nothing.
Are you at a business?
I am at a store, yes. I'm at a Synergy.
Are you at an Exxon?
Is
It
this
looks like you're
Exxon?
at 801 East Market.
Okay, it's an Exxon, yes.
Are you hurt and needed an ambulance?
No, I'm not, but I mean, like, he told me to come into the store and grab some shit and, like, took off on me, and I don't know where I'm at. I'm in the middle of Greensboro. He took my phone. I don't have my phone. Yes, back to my house.
All right, what are you wearing so officers can identify you
No,
when
he
they
took
get
my
there?
shit. You said what?
What are you wearing so officers can identify you when they get there?
I'm wearing some blue jeans and a white shirt with some yellow sneakers. That's not going to help my problem, though, ma'am. I'm stuck all the way in Greensboro, and I don't know where I'm at.
Okay, you just told me you're at an Exxon.
Yes, but
Yeah.
in order for me to get back home, I don't have any of my contacts.
Okay, I'm going to send an officer out there to see if they can help you in any way.
Okay.
All right, they'll be there as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
So that was Marissa Carmichael. She's calling from a gas station in Greensboro, North Carolina. This was a little over a year ago that she made that phone call. 3:40 in the morning from a gas station. She makes a call that she was thrown out of a car. Her stuff was taken. She doesn't have her cell phone. She's a little disoriented. It's not that she doesn't know where she is. She knows she's at a gas station. The 911 dispatcher helps to locate her. We know where she's at. But the dispatcher says, we'll basically find a way to help you. And she goes, well, it doesn't help me because I don't know where home is in relation to this gas station. So yes, we know where I am. I'm at this gas station, but I don't know where in Greensboro I am. And it's sort of funny to me because, she was partying in Greensboro earlier that night. She was on a night out. And so she's lost somewhere in the middle of the same city that she was already in. Doesn't sound very disoriented, but I think she's feeling disoriented because she's without her cell phone. She's without her contacts. We've become very, very reliant on our cell phone to put us in touch with our mom or other people in our life. And once that's gone, we don't remember those numbers. All of a sudden, we can feel like we're totally without our lifeline. But the most important thing about this is you have to understand is that it's 3:40 in the morning. She's at this gas station. And after she makes this phone call to the police on a 911 line, she disappeared. And we still do not know where Marissa Carmichael is. Drew, any thoughts on this before I play a news clip?
You're right about the cell phone. I mean, it's very clear that we rely way too much on that cell phone, which is one thing. But secondly, she does not sound to be in distress. Now, here's something I want to be very clear about on this show, in particular. We're delving into this missing person case. It's a year old. It's in the media, and we're not necessarily here to shame anybody, but at the same time, like, these are some things that you can think about in this case in particular, but also for your own personal safety, things to think about. And I know that you're getting ready to play a news clip. It's probably going to describe what she means by she doesn't have her contacts or her contact information in anywhere. But the thing that stuck out to me in that phone call is she's not saying she's been robbed, and she's not saying that she's injured whatsoever. Her chief complaint is, I don't know where I'm at, and I don't have my phone anymore because this dude took off in the car. Like, as in, he may not even know he has the phone. So she's looking for a way to get home. We'll see a little foreshadowing. We'll see why she's a little confused about where home is for her, because, you know, she was on a girls' trip supposedly. So the thing that stuck out to me was that she was not really in distress. She just needed a ride home, and she called 911, and 911 obviously has the resources and the answers, but nobody wants to hear the answers.
I have to just really underline what you said. She's not in distress. This isn't an emergency. She dialed 911, but then she asked for the non-emergency number. She said she didn't need an ambulance. She didn't report being the victim of a felony. So what should the priority for our response be on this call? It doesn't sound like an emergency. She's in a safe place. That's something 911 dispatchers will also consider when prioritizing a call. Okay, so she's got a problem that isn't necessarily one that's supposed to be fulfilled by law enforcement, but hey, you know, protect and serve. We're here to help you out.
Yeah.
We'll help you out. But you know, she's not in any danger. She's in a public place. If she was walking out on a roadside, if she was by herself, if she was in a position where she seemed vulnerable, we would worry about that. But typically at a gas station or a grocery store or a Walmart or something like that, we consider that a public place and usually pretty safe. I'm going to go ahead and play a news clip from about a week ago that will tell us the whole story.
A woman went missing. Marissa Carmichael was last seen at a gas station on East Market Street in Greensboro. She called 911 and said her phone was stolen and someone left her at the gas station. When police got there, she was gone. Police say surveillance video shows Carmichael getting into a car with someone and leaving. Officers say they have interviewed that person and consider them a witness in the case.
So that's it. I mean, she went to this gas station and then she placed this phone call and she disappeared. And I'll go through a timeline with you now to kind of help you understand the facts as we know them. This comes from solvethecase.org. Solvethecase.org is essentially an online website that basically it's almost like crowdsourcing for unsolved cases. You know, if there's police officers or people in the public who know things, they can submit tips or ideas. And it's sort of a way of lateral thinking to solve things. But it's
crowdsourcing with expertise. I kind of dig when guys like this, when guys do that, like, especially when a kid goes missing or something, and all of the like retired cops that have expertise in that area, like, all converge. And they, you know, not necessarily try to run things, but they don't let their expertise just die up in their brain. They do what they can to help society. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. The president of solvethecase.org is Aaron Benzik. He's a former detective. He's got 20 years of experience. Kind of sounds like you, only not as experienced. And then a guy named Zeke Fortenberry, who's a lawyer, and so he's done some legal work and things like that. So the people that run the website are a little bit more than just this is not an Angel Fire website with fan theories on it. So I'll go through some of the timeline with you, and then we'll kind of discuss where we think she might be and how this case is going and why it might not be what we think it is. There's a lot of interesting fan theories out there, and I'll run some of those past you. But on Saturday, January 13th, 2024. So just a little over a year ago, Marissa went with a friend to a sofa bar and lounge called 117. This is at 117 North Green Street. She left that place with her friend and went to a house party when that bar closed. That happened at 3:38 a.m. So she's already partying pretty late into the morning. Someone dialed 911 to report drugs, guns, and suspicious activity at a house in 444 Goral Street, which is kind of in the same area. It's where the bar is and where the gas station is. It's a little bit south and to the east, but I don't know what the beats are, the patrol sectors for a police officer in Greensboro, but I imagine, just based off of the proximity being blocks away, that the police officers that are going to be assigned to respond to this gas station for an unknown problem that's not an emergency are probably these same officers that are going out to Gorell Street for this narcotics, weapons, drugs situation that's out there. So the officers arrive there at 4 a.m. and then they clear at 4:17. And they found no guns, no drugs, or anything else at that location. So the call was unfounded. Drew, has it ever been your experience that someone will try to call the police and report on parties where that kind of activity is going on because either they're concerned neighbors or they're disaffected friends who didn't get invited? Or what do you think about that?
I would love to see the call location history file for that address, because I can't remember where I read it or where I saw it, but from what I understand, she was a very young mother of 5. I think she was 25 years old.
Right.
And so she needed a break, so to speak. She had a family member watch her children. This was a weekend away, kind of a weekend party with her girlfriends. So they rented an Airbnb because it was outside of where she lived. It wasn't near where she lived. And Airbnbs, what people don't tell you is that's a very common mechanism of holding very loud and raucous house parties. We had an Airbnb problem in Hillsborough County. There are jurisdictions across America that are trying to legislate who can rent and when they can rent. They're working with Airbnb. Airbnb knows about the problem. They're just, they're doing what they can. They just kind of want their cut. The Airbnb owners, like, what are they going to do? Like, they can't necessarily, I don't know. I don't know how, like, you can say all day long, there's that stupid commercial with Nick Saban, where he talks about, okay, no, don't use no house parties, no nothing. That's a fact. That's what happens. People rent Airbnbs for the weekend to have parties, and sometimes they're legitimate, and sometimes they're just like, come one, come all, like, hey, come back to the house. Here's the address. And the neighbors in that neighborhood are understandably upset. So I guarantee they call every weekend and say, there's drugs and loud music coming from 116 Redwood Avenue or whatever it is. And the cops have to go out there, and now it becomes part of the wallpaper. If you're working Saturday night into Sunday morning, or if you're working Friday night into Saturday, you're going to spend some time out there at some point. You might as well drive up and down. There's going to be complaints about the parking because people, park their cars up and down the street and whatnot. So this sometimes becomes part of the wallpaper. So maybe they go to the house, they knock on the door. The people on the other side of the door have rented an Airbnb for their own purposes. It's their business, whatever they're doing, as long as they're, they don't have to give consent for you to come in. You can tell them, hey guys, keep it down. You're keeping the neighbors up, and you leave. And I'm thinking that's probably what the case was with this house.
So what's interesting about the timeline is that when Marissa leaves the bar, that's at 3:38. That's the same time, or at about the same time, that a 911 caller reports these drugs, guns, and the suspicious activity at this house that's kind of in the same patrol area. So that happens at the same time that she leaves the bar. Marissa gets to the gas station at 3:46 a.m. And that's when someone threw all her stuff out of the vehicle, but took her phone. They left her stranded there and trying to find a way to get back home or back to this Airbnb. So she made that phone call to 911 at 3:46. Well, so those officers were dispatched about the same time to Gorell Street. They arrived at 4 a.m. So that's why the officers are not responding to the gas stations, because they actually have another call to go to. And wouldn't you believe it, we're not going to take an officer out of another patrol area, patrol district to cover a call when it's not an emergency. It's really just a public services, like help a lady get home. The issue of her phone being taken might be a theft complaint, but there again, it doesn't.
She's not making a theft complaint.
It doesn't. According to the phone call, it hasn't necessarily been a theft complaint on what we can tell from the 911 dispatch so far. And she was dropped off there. The officers go over to Gorell Street. Well, like I said, the officers clear there at 4:17, and that's when they head over to the gas station. And it's not far away. It's only 3 minutes away. They arrive there at 4:20. And what do they find out? Well, the gas station's open. For those of you who are worried that maybe the gas station was closed and Marissa was really on her own out there. But the store clerk says Marissa got a ride with another customer. So it took them a little bit of time to respond to this because it was not an emergency. Marissa asked for the non-emergency line. She described a problem that she needed help with. She even said, that's not going to help me, when the officers arrived, because I still don't have my contact. So although Marissa called for help from the police, I don't think she was fully bought into the idea that the police were even going to be able to help her. Case in point, she took a ride from someone else who said that they would give her a ride home. If you listen to that 911 phone call, she says at one point, yes, back to my house. Like someone said to her, like, hey, are you looking for a ride home? So even on the 911 phone call, it sounds like a third party was there offering her that ride. So at 4:27, Marissa tried to contact the first friend she talked to at the club using a Facebook account to the person she believed to have picked her up from the Exxon. So she's using this person's Facebook account to use Facebook Messenger to talk to that person. And with Facebook Messenger, if you're getting a message from someone you don't know, it may not give you that alert. I don't know if that happened or not, or how that's set up, but it's not a good a method as just calling her. But again, she doesn't know her friend's phone numbers. So at 5 a.m., Marissa called her father's phone and asked to speak with a friend that lived with them. Marissa explained what was going on and was trying to get contact information for the person she left the house party with, and who still had her phone, basically whoever it is that threw her out of the car and drove off. And then by 4 p.m. later that day, some 11 hours later, the missing persons report was filed listing the location of the bar as the place she went missing, which to me doesn't really make sense because we had a known location for her that she was calling from. The dispatcher kind of alluded to it. Are you on East Market Street? She confirmed that she was at the gas station. So, Drew, the bar would be important because if she's a true missing person and we're trying to figure out what happened to her, walk us through some of that early detection process. I assume we're going to want to talk to all the people that she talked to. If we believe she's in danger, we're possibly going to get a warrant for her phone. If you're taking over this case, receiving that report at 4 p.m., tell us some of your first steps and what you're going to do.
I want to, some of my first steps, and hats off to the investigators that do this, would include listening to the 911 call. So at some point, John, we don't normally do this, but I want to listen to it again because there are a couple things that I didn't really pick up on until I started thinking about them just now.
I'll replay it if you want.
Yeah, we can do it now. Yeah, go for it.
If that's what you're asking for. I thought maybe, are you saying as an investigator or as a podcaster?
Both.
Let's do it.
But
I was Metro 911. What's the address?
No, go.
Address of your emergency.
Yes, ma'am. I needed the contact to the non-emergency number.
It comes into the same center. I can try to help you while I have you on the phone, and I can give you the
Okay,
number for
yes.
future
I don't know where I am in Greensboro. I just got all my stuff throughout the car. He took off with my phone. I have no clue where I'm at. I have no number.
Okay. The first thing that pops out to me is, well, it's something we already discussed. She wants the non-emergency line. She doesn't want to violate any trusts or make anybody think that this is an emergency. She doesn't sound like she's excited. But the term, I just had all my stuff thrown out of the car, is that slang for he threw my shit out, or he threw all of he gathered my belongings and threw everything but my pocketbook and my telephone. Like there are differences. And in the streets, when you say something like he threw my shit out, she's basically saying he threw me out of the car. And it's not clarified in the call, which is understandable because the operator, who did an ultra professional job, by the way, didn't engage in if you want non-emergency, we'll give you like just completely like, it comes in the same place. I'll help you. I'm already on the phone with you. She did a phenomenal job. So what does that mean? He threw my stuff out. So these are some of the things that, if I'm the detective that arrives at the scene after I've listened to that, I'm going to have the officers there. Or if I'm the supervisor, I'm going to have some of the officers there start looking along the streets to see if there's stuff that is actually thrown out. I'm going to pull the video from the convenience store, rewind and see what she walked in with. If she just walked in empty-handed, that's something else. She also indicated that she was sent, which we'll get into the call in a second, she was sent into that store to get some stuff, meaning probably alcohol, if I had to guess, which means she probably wouldn't have anything with her. She would need her hands to carry stuff. So there's that. And if you want to get back, nobody has made this into a missing persons case yet. There's no indication that this is any kind of a missing persons case. If it were, you would definitely want to go back to the bar and find out, okay, yes, the Exxon is the last known location. We have her on video. We have her leaving with somebody. They eventually found that person and said he's a witness. He's not a suspect or an accomplice. Who did she leave the bar with, and who in the bar knows that person? Was this just like 3:17 means to me, it's beer goggles. It's like closing time. It's time to grab, the buoy because you're getting ready to drown and go with whoever you're going to go with. If that's that kind of lounge or that kind of situation, maybe I'm not passing any judgment whatsoever. I've been there. So as an investigator / supervisor, I'm going to make sure all those steps are taken. I'm going to make, we're going to be waking up a manager. More than likely, there'll be somebody at the bar cleaning the place. So we're going to wake up a manager or whatever to get the video, make sure that they're okay with it. There are consent issues with pulling the video and stuff. Sometimes they'll just, they'll help you because just depending on the nature of the call. But continue to play the call because there are a couple other things that I've got questions on.
Are you at a business?
I am at a store, yes. I'm at a Synergy.
Are you at an Exxon?
Is
it
this
looks like you're at
Exxon?
801 East Market?
Okay, it's an Exxon, yes.
Okay, what's your name?
Marissa Carmichael.
Are you hurt and needed an ambulance?
No, I'm not. But I mean, he told me to come into the store and grab some shit and, took off on me. And I don't know where I'm at. I'm in the middle of Greensboro. He took my phone. I don't have my phone. Yes, back to my house.
All right, what are you wearing so officers can identify you
No,
when
he
they
took
get
my
there?
shit. You said what?
What are you wearing so officers can identify you when they get there?
All right, so we're going to get to that telling phrase in a second she gives, but it's very indicative of not being in any kind of distress whatsoever. If you're engaged in conversation, if you're on the phone with 911, but you're engaged with conversation with a complete stranger that you're face to face with. And it sounds to me like the conversation is going something like, I can get you a ride to where you need to be. Where do you need to be? I don't know. He has all my shit. So, meaning I don't have the address where I need to go. I have no clue where it is. I don't live there. So I don't know where to go. And her complaint is not, by the way, that her phone is missing. Her complaint is that her contacts in the phone are missing. So this is not a matter of I've been robbed or this is a theft or there's a crime. There's no indication that this is a crime or actually anything nefarious has taken place here at this point.
Would you like to hear the family's theory on what points to nefarious activity? Because I'd like to contrast it, and it fits in with what you already know. But she's at a bar with a person or persons unknown. She leaves the bar. She takes a ride with this person who may or may not be her friend. Doesn't sound like a friend. She gets deposited at the gas station. He tells her, hey, go in there and buy something, and then drives off. What the family is saying is that this sounds like a setup. Like she was taken from the scene of the bar, dropped off at a specific place where it was prearranged, and that she would be helpless while she was there to call for help or make other arrangements. Well, a third party unknown would arrive and pick her up and spirit her away to, a trafficking situation is basically what they're concerned about, is that
Right.
basically she was set up to be forced into that situation. And it doesn't disagree with any of the facts. It just happens to sort of be, I would say, an unlikely theory. What is your view on that theory?
Well, human trafficking happens a lot more than people think. And that is a scenario that could play into human trafficking. The problem is this theory being applied in this case is exactly what's wrong with this theory being applied in this case. It's boy who cried wolf. So we can't call everything human trafficking just because it has like one or two symptoms. Like, you know, if you have one or two, if you have a sore throat and a runny nose, it doesn't mean you have the full on flu, right? So think of, it does have some of the earmarks though. So you kind of, I mean, you know, you pay a little, you obviously give it a little attention, but again, it gets back to what the victim's demeanor was. And if this were a setup for her to be brought to one location and swooped away to be trafficked, the police would have said that by now, because they located the person that drove her away and they are calling him a witness. They're not calling him a suspect. Now, it could be a cooperating witness, you know, just like if we want to stick with the theory that she's being trafficked. And by the way, if Attorney General Pam Bondi is confirmed, I can tell you from experience here in Florida, she was very, very, very interested in human trafficking and abating human trafficking. So there came a push in the state of Florida and then nationwide to investigate human trafficking more, which in turn upped the reports of human trafficking. This is what I'm saying. Everything becomes human trafficking at this point.
I have a perfect story for that, actually. Someone dialed 911 once. They were at a gas station near the interstate, and they saw what looked like a troubling situation. A 14-year-old girl was arguing with her grandfather or someone who would have been that age about getting in the car and leaving and getting going. And the person who was calling me, she says, "We just watched this video at my job on how to be alert for the signs of human trafficking. And I just saw this. And I just saw this girl arguing with this older man. And I don't know, it just didn't feel right to me." So I've got to broadcast this thing to the police saying, like, this is what the caller thinks. And I've gotten a lot more wise about that. But all of a sudden I have social media and things like that picking up, like the police are possibly investigating this human trafficking case, this forced abduction at a gas station. I'm like, this lady had this recency bias where she just saw this video and it got her really keyed up to be on the lookout for the signs of human trafficking, because she cares a lot about it. But it also kind of gives her a bias to see everything, and it's confirmation bias that what she's seeing is definitely human trafficking. So I have no doubt that reports and investigations on human trafficking increases reports of it. But going back to this case, if it was human trafficking, it could really only be that if she was trafficked from a location. So the idea that she's dropped off at the gas station as a setup really can't be the case, because then she was picked up by this third party who took her away, who police have identified, listed as a witness, and she would have had to have been abducted from some still unknown other location.
And even third, even separate, a location known to her, because she had to direct this guy where to go.
Yeah.
Or like if he knew where to go, or he knew where to get her to the traffickers, then this is why I think that there would be a little bit more diligence put into this, and there would probably be a lot more communication from the police department or whatever investigative agency is handling this. I don't know for sure. Like, I'm not part of the investigation, but
what's the reason why they wouldn't want to put out all that information trying to find someone?
No, there wouldn't be. I think that they would. I think that you would definitely have to carefully balance calling anything human trafficking, because just for the reasons we just talked about, you're going to up the like everything is going to become human trafficking. Then there's actually a phenomenon where people report themselves as being human trafficked because it's in the news now. You know, I mean, it gets attention. We did an episode on I did an episode on Carly Russell, wasn't that her name? Carly Russell, in Hoover, Alabama, that did the same thing. I mean, well, it's not the same thing.
It's the best episode ever, and I was on vacation for it. So
she claimed that it was my saddest episode ever, to be honest. My loneliest episode. She go back and watch that episode, by the way. Maybe I'll edit it and put it back up. But she claimed that she was kidnapped, and come to find out, she wasn't kidnapped. In fact, she was charged criminally for saying that she was kidnapped, because when you say things like that, this is why it's very dangerous. Crying wolf, you're going to get the National Guard. I mean, you're going to get the whole kitchen sink thrown at you, because we want to find you. Like, no matter who you are, the color of your skin, and the Carly Russell case proved that. Because the only reason I'm bringing that up, John, is because if you'll remember, when Gabby Petito went missing, the left-leaning media, I'm not making this political at all. The left-leaning media, though, focused on the fact that she's a small, pretty white girl, and that's why they're covering her. And ironically, it was the left-leaning media, meaning they have control over who gets covered and who doesn't get covered. So, whatever. I mean, and Gabby Petito is a whole different story. I did a video on that on my own, but so continue, John. Either continue with the 911 call, or
let's finish off the 911 call, and then I'll just have a few brief questions.
I'm wearing some blue jeans and a white shirt with some yellow sneakers. That's not going to help my problem, though, ma'am. I'm stuck all the way in Greensboro, and I don't know where I'm at.
Okay, you just told me you're at an Exxon.
Yes, but in order for me to get back home, I don't have any of my contacts.
Okay, I'm going to send an officer out there to see if they can help you in any way.
Okay.
All right, they'll be there as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you.
That's the right thing to do. Let me just send you an officer.
That's all you can do in that situation, is send an officer to help. But it's important to remember, it's not an emergency. She's in a safe place. And here's the final thing. So the police were there prior. They got there, and then she was gone prior to arrival. She has every right to exercise that as a discretion for herself. She's not obligated to stay at the scene. A courtesy would have been calling us to let us know she's leaving, but almost no one's going to exercise that. It's nobody's business, so we don't expect the clerk to call and say, hey, this person you're coming for has left the scene. In an ideal world, it would work that way. But so she has the freedom to leave the scene. She doesn't have to wait for police officers, even though that she's called for help. And once the police get there and she's not there, there's nothing they can do. They have no reason to believe anything nefarious is going on. She got a good Samaritan to help her out. In fact, the police generally kind of like those situations. I mean, of course, they can go bad, but then that's what the police are for. Go ahead.
There is a thought too that what human trafficker that's worth their weight in human trafficking feathers would stand in a convenience store with a camera on them, engage in conversation in front of a witness, then offer to drive the person in a vehicle that can be identified by officers that everyone knows is on the way. Whether, the quote human trafficker that left the Exxon with her, who was identified as a witness later on, has no idea where the officers are. The officers could be sitting in the parking lot for all they know. So why would you take a risk as a human trafficker, is my question, to say, hey, step into the passenger side of my car and I'll take you away. No one will ever see me. That's not what's happening here. Like, he's very public, he's very visible, his car's very visible. The first officer on the scene can put a bolo out for the vehicle if there's any thought of her being in any form of distress. So the human trafficking thing is, to me, at this point, is not likely based on that.
I don't
if
think
there's other information, then so be it.
It's more scintillating to the true crime armchair detectives, because they want to look at this incident on this other street where these police officers were sent for drugs and narcotics, and they say, well, that was the misdirect. The police were sent there so that they wouldn't be available, if any kind of 911 call was made. Well, you also took her phone away. So it's like, we're telling us that we have we have a setup here with at least 2 or 3 parties involved to make the police go to divert them to another location, have someone drop her off. I mean, she's already in custody at that point of at least one of the co-conspirators. Drop her off into the custody of another co-conspirator who, like you said, yeah, he's hanging out under cameras. Convenience store safe because of all the surveillance going on. Yes, you mentioned the person there. The clerk who was in the store who could identify people, the third party who picked her up, maybe even used his debit card or something. That's another way he could be identified. Pictures of his face from the cameras, but finally the license plate. I mean, the fact is that we identified him and we haven't cracked open a human trafficking ring. So I think family members of true crime people want to report that that this is some sort of human trafficking way of snatching people up, and they want to do this because they want women to feel afraid. They want you to feel the next time that you go out that you could be caught up in one of these scams where all of a sudden you're deposited somewhere and you're stranded and vulnerable. And taking safeguards against those things is the only positive thing you could take away from that. But other than that, Drew, like if you're looking for a missing person, what are some of the other steps you're going to go through? And then we have one last video to play.
Well, first of all, I feel for the mother who is just trying to get her daughter back. So, I mean, I don't know that she's necessarily making anything up, or she's just like, she's searching for answers. She just wants her daughter back, probably. So whether she has more information is withholding it, or if she does not have any information and she's holding on to this theory, it's probably the bargaining part of just like, where's my daughter? I want my daughter to come back. And it may be because her daughter is over the age of 18 and doesn't want to come home. Like, she just is basically running away from home, though it's not a likely scenario because, from what I understand, she was a very good mom to the 5 children that she's had, though she's, 25 years old. But the other thing is the dispatcher, the 911 operator took the name. Hopefully that made it into the CAD notes. Maybe a little background information while the officers are on the way there to determine if she's been contacted by that police department before, and it just might be an off chance because, she might be an out of towner, genuinely. So you may never know who she is or where she's from, but
if she's had prior contact with the police, we may know a lot about her, and we'll jump into that. But I wanted to play this final clip from a news outlet that wanted to talk about the case. And I wanted to bring this up because those of you watching who say, well, he's a 911 dispatcher, he's just a phone jockey, he doesn't know what he's talking about. And this Drew Breezy guy, it doesn't sound like, he's a missing persons detective because he's not taking this human trafficking angle very seriously. I want to point out what people who clearly don't know what they're talking about. I want to show you what that looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and play this clip.
We don't know how she left that club at some point and then ended up at the Exxon gas station, and where that Exxon gas station is in relation to where that club is.
We're not, though. A simple Google search told you. I found the location that it's on Green Street. It's 0.6 miles away from the gas station. If you take Friendly Street and go east 0.6 miles, you'll come to the intersection of Market and Friendly, which is where that gas station is. So we have Stuart Kaplan talking on this national media outlet. He's a former FBI agent. He's kind of talking as an expert on these things. Saying we don't know where the gas station is and we don't know where the club was and we don't know how she got there. It's true. We don't know what vehicle she took or who she was riding with. Necessarily the police may know that, but we don't. But he's speculating on it, and he's just admitting right away that, hey, I don't really know where these two are located in regards to geography. Well, it wasn't an odyssey that she went on. It was a brief drive. If they're driving 30 miles an hour, it probably took her a minute or more to get from the club to the gas station where she was dropped off. So Stuart Kaplan, commenting as a former FBI agent, not holding a candle to you so far, Drew, but I'm going to continue.
I think we are still unaware of where, quote unquote, that club is located in proximity to the Exxon station. There's a lot of inconsistencies here. There are a lot of things that are not necessarily measuring up. And if I could just touch upon one of the things, obviously, I think that's a little concerning to me is, and I think you touched upon it, that at 3:40 in the morning, she does call 911, does speak to a operator through the emergency assistance line. Excuse me. And then it's not till 39 minutes later do the police actually end up going to the Exxon station. Of course, that 39 minutes, obviously, the police haven't addressed, nor maybe they haven't been questioned or challenged as to why it took them 39 minutes to respond in connection with that 911 call. But Here's where I think the story starts to unravel, and there are some inconsistencies.
Okay, so he's throwing a little bit of shade there at the police about why it took
Yeah,
them 39 minutes
because
to respond.
nobody's challenged or questioned them. And first of all, nobody knows that. You don't know if they've been questioned or challenged about it. And two, why would you challenge or question the police for a 39-minute response time for a call that's not an emergency? Specifically not an emergency. She stated it wasn't an emergency. She wasn't reporting a crime. She's 3 o'clock on a Sunday morning, lost in the middle of Greensboro, easy to infer to people who have done first responder police work for a living that she was in a club. She might be a little intoxicated. That's when people like that are out. And she just doesn't know, she doesn't have her way home. I'll tell you, as a street cop first, as a dispatcher first, and then as a street cop, then as a shift commander, in the middle as a detective, I'll still have a little empathy for somebody who is drunk and alone, and a young girl who doesn't know where she is and had her shit thrown out of a car and doesn't have her phone. I'm still going to have empathy for her. I'm still going to try to help her. But if it's not an emergency, I'm not going to treat it like an emergency. I promise you. I like, this is why this is why your mom told you, John, or America, nothing good happens after 2 o'clock. Nothing good happens after midnight out there. I had a mother one time. It was a sweet moment. She was mad that her 17-year-old daughter ran away. And we were in this apartment complex. I was the shift commander. I was concerned because the girl was only 17. And she said, I've told her before, the only two things that are open after midnight are clubs and legs. So this is this is it was treated with the diligence it probably deserved at the time. You can sit there and Monday morning quarterback this all day long as an FBI agent. I'm sure you would have found her in the first 5 minutes with all of your BIing, but this is not necessarily an emergency. So I don't know that we need to call, criticize, or even ask questions as to why it takes 39 minutes. It takes 39 minutes because it's a freaking Saturday night into a Sunday morning. I don't know if he started his life as a street cop. I don't know when the last time he was out on patrol at Saturday night and into a Saturday morning is.
Well, I wanted to draw attention to the fact that he doesn't know the geography with respect to those two places because it wasn't, so he didn't look into the case. I don't think he listened to the 911 call because he says, well, this woman dialed 911 and it took 39 minutes. If I just say to you, someone dialed 911 and it took 39 minutes, the response is, well, that's appalling. Well, but if you listen to the call and you realize it was not an emergency and she was safe and she just needed someone to help her find her phone and that she left of her own free will, then you realize that the police really are not to be criticized for how long they responded. And there's a lot of true crime podcasts out there that are covering this case. It's a relatively new case. It's something you're going to hear if you listen to any other cases about Marissa Carmichael, is that the police were somehow negligent in their response. The truth is it wasn't an emergency. They were at this other house where there were possible felonies in progress. They needed to look in that. According to prioritizing a call, Marissa Carmichael's call was not an emergency by her own words. And so now we have an FBI agent out there who's trying to use the clout of being a former FBI agent. And he doesn't know what he's talking about, and he's throwing shade at police officers for their response, and I don't like it. And Drew, if I want to hammer this home while I'm still mad, because I won't be mad in a minute. But FBI agents on TV are shown as super police, right? So there's a street cop and they kind of don't know what to do. They're scratching their head. A detective comes over and then, they crouch over the thing or whatever's happening and they have a theory. And all of a sudden the G-men show up and they take over and it's the super police and they're the ones who are going to get to the bottom of it. But Drew, as a sheriff's deputy and a detective in one of America's largest cities, I want you to tell me what it was like when the FBI partnered with you on an investigation, if you have any memories of that.
Yeah, horrible at surveillance. I don't think any of them would tell you that they're good. There are probably some great agents that are great at surveillance, but you're going to mix into the crew that's not. and they're going to blow your surveillance every single time. 100% of the time. That's my experience. I've more than one investigation with the FBI, different crimes we're looking at. That's just an aside. What you need to do when you're dealing with the FBI, I've had some wonderful interactions. I have a lot of friends who are FBI agents. I have friends who are high up in the FBI, former coworkers. What I tend to do in a situation like that is look for I was a street cop, then I became an FBI agent. You don't want I've always wanted to be an FBI agent, and I am now an FBI agent. Therefore, you're going to give me all your information, and I'm not going to tell you anything in return, FBI agent. You don't want any part of that.
Yeah.
So you do your best to find a translator, so to speak. A liaison, somebody that you can relate to, that can speak your language and speak their language. And they offer wonderful support. A lot. I mean, look, I'm not completely bashing it, and I don't, I'm jumping down this.
Support is really the word I'm looking for there. They support local law enforcement. FBI doesn't typically just jump into a case like this. They offer the support of the FBI. Go ahead.
So this is kind of poetic justice for what I've been saying for the past, I don't know, however many years, since Abby first interviewed me, way back when I first started becoming Drew Breezy. If you want to continue to default to the police are always wrong, and we need to look at what the police did wrong first, you are jeopardizing your own safety by doing that. And that's exactly what we have here. This isn't an officer-involved shooting. This is an investigation into what? I don't know yet. But the Stuart Kaplan seems to think that it's something major, and he hasn't even really looked into it. But his default, just like all the true crime crowd that does this over a bottle of Chianti, will tell you, what did the police do wrong here? Where did the police go wrong? We covered Amanda Nenegar's case, and God bless her. I'm heartbroken that she found herself in the position she found herself in, but the police didn't put her there. And the police didn't put this, Marissa Carmichael in this position either.
Yeah.
So I don't know why we always or I know why, because the media has told us that we should always default to what did the police do wrong. Whoa, Johnny Law, Johnny FBI. Maybe the police didn't do anything wrong here. Well, I don't know why you're going to that as your default. If you want to be, as Kash Patel would say, you want to be cops, go be cops. Well, this is your opportunity to be a cop. And it's okay to be reflective and say, hey, let's debrief and let's figure out if we did something wrong. That's one thing. But to automatically assume, like, how come nobody's called them into account, or how come nobody's questioned or pushed back on them, or F you. I like, what are you talking about? You don't, why are you defaulting to that? Why aren't you saying, how did this young 25-year-old woman find herself in the position that she was in? At what point are we going to get back to the criminals? At what point are we going to get back to finding out what happened to the victim? I've kind of had enough of, like, the cops are always wrong, the cops are at fault. And then when you get a guy like me and a guy like you to come on here, I can't tell you how many times I've heard, especially in that Seattle episode, you're just cop-splaining. And yes, that's exactly what I'm doing, because you have no clue what you're talking about. So if a plane crashes in the middle of the ocean, they have a pilot come on and explain why the plane crashed in the middle of the ocean. And nobody gets on social media and starts dogging that pilot and telling him, no, he could have pulled up at 35,000 feet. He was only doing 420 knots. But when something like this happens, anybody can solve this case. Anybody can do better than the cops. Anybody. And if a cop gets on there and explains things, you're just cop-splaining it. You're just making excuses. And no, I'm not. I'm telling you how it is. We pride ourselves on the authenticity and the truth that we purvey.
Just wanted to remind the people out there that when you watch coverage like this and you see someone going to these talking points that don't make sense, use your own critical thinking. When he says, we don't know where the club is when the gas station is, again, a Google search does that. That's how lazy he is. And he goes straight to the common talking point. Well, the police have done something wrong if it's a 39-minute response to a 911 call. He clearly didn't listen to it. And he just wants to throw his opinion into the ring and act like he was an investigator of things and be someone who gets paid to do talking head stuff. But there's no insight. Marissa is still missing. A year later, she does have 5 children. We do need to be concerned about that. We need to be a lookout for Marissa. It's possible that she's in danger. These are the pictures that come from the news. This is not me editorializing Marissa's life. You can see that that's a common picture on the left-hand side that's used for her missing persons photos. Maybe a picture that's closer to what she looked like in the center, because she looks like she's maybe on a night on the town. And then finally, there's a picture of her on the right-hand side, which I don't even know what to say about that, but that's just a picture that the news put out of her. That's maybe one recognizable trait about her that you could use to identify her. But finally, Drew, one picture that was actually very hard to find of Marissa, and we're not coming at this from a judgmental point of view, but we need to show that the news is a little bit biased, and they're biased in favor of victims or alleged or supposed victims. But here's another picture of Marissa, and this tells us quite a bit about her life. And we don't need to judge her. We don't know what this was for. But understanding that there is a mugshot of Marissa out there means that she's been in trouble before. It also means that we have a wealth of information about Marissa in terms of the kinds of behavior that she's up to, the kinds of people that she associates with. And we know a lot about her. And just having that information from our prior contact with her will help us a lot in the investigation. So not judging her, not saying she did anything to deserve what happened. But Drew, did you want to explore any final possibilities that maybe Marissa is okay and we're just not being told that?
Yeah. If they're in contact with the witness, I don't know. I think that there's strong indication that they knew where she went or they know where she is, and she's not talking. I mean, whether she's in danger or not, I don't know. I mean, she most certainly could be in distress, and God bless her. I hope that she returns home safely. I hope that this is just nothing. I hope this is just like Carly Russell, like everybody just kind of jumped the gun and assumed, and then she turned up disheveled, and everyone said, "See, I told you so," and we all said, "Just wait." And within a month, she was charged criminally for making the whole story up. Look,
wasting a lot of taxpayer dollars.
Yeah, but I'd welcome an ending like that. Not necessarily the criminally charged part, but that she returns home safely.
Yeah.
But I do believe that you have to balance public safety with establishing panic in the public. So if you throw around terms like, well, we think Marissa has been human trafficked, all of a sudden everybody's going to be human trafficked. If you say things like, we don't think that she's with us anymore, well, then does that mean you have a murderer on the loose? Does that mean that you have to create this manhunt for, I just think that there would be the Stuart Kaplans of the world to don their FBI capes and fly into the scene and solve the whole problem for us if it were that major of a scale. Now listen, I'm getting down on Stuart Kaplan. I'm throwing cheap shots at him. Here's my guess, John. I saw this segment. I think it's on News Nation. At the end of it, the anchor makes some reference to them being friends. She could have called him 30 minutes prior and said, "Hey, we got this missing girl case. Can you just do a quick 5-minute hit for me?" And Stuart Kaplan said, "Well, sure. I mean, I was an FBI agent, of course. I can speak, I can speak intelligently on it." And obviously he didn't do any of the research, but look, just so the public is comforted. So, that's my olive branch to Stuart Kaplan, but, and come on the show if you want to dispute any of this, but look, just to make the public understand, the first thing, if a cop responds to the Exxon and determines there's a missing person case that needs to be investigated, it's not going to stay with that cop. I would hope it would escalate to a detective, a supervisor. It would go from there. One and two, we know how to trace. Like even the basic patrolman knows how to trace steps. So we would have figured out what club she was at before I don't know, 15, 20 minutes. Like we would have figured out where she was. Even if somebody can, like if you get a hold of one of her friends, you figure out, you trace back this, you trace back that, you find where she was. Like someone's going to know.
Yeah. I do think Stuart Kaplan is in it for himself because as an FBI agent, if he ever investigated any cases of import, he would have been frustrated by the talking heads in the media and the way that they can influence people to report things that are misleading or time wasting. And if he's getting on TV without doing much research, he should just say, like, I haven't looked too deeply into this case. But he did do something damaging to the police officers in Greensboro by suggesting that they were somehow negligent in their duty. And that's a serious thing to a police department. It's the kind of things that lawsuits are made of. It's the kind of things that marches are made of these days. So you got to be careful not to do that, Stuart Kaplan. We do appreciate you watching the show. If you are angry about anything that we said, leave a comment in the comments below. We do respond to that. So if you think that we are victim shaming, victim blaming, or that we are somehow responsible for the disappearance of Marissa Carmichael, or you just have a question or concern, you get to avail yourself of the mind and expertise and insight of a police officer who did cases like these 29 years. Drew, anything else before I touch on voicemails?
Just a final thought, FYI, a 38-minute response time to a call on a Saturday night into a Sunday morning could be indicative of low staffing, which could be a result of people bashing the police solidly since 2015.
That could be very possible as well. Excellent point that what goes around comes around. You say defund the police, but we're also defunding the people that might have been looking for Marissa Carmichael early in the morning. If you wanted to be a part of the show, but you don't want to leave a YouTube comment, you could always call us at 848-COMM-911. That's 848-266-6911.
Nice.
You can leave a message on our Jim from Florida voicemail hotline. We would appreciate that. Make sure you're liking and subscribing everything on YouTube. Make sure you're leaving a comment. Check out our other videos. We have a whole library of other stuff that's designed to piss you off and infuriate you. And of course, there's other places where you can find us and listen to us. Go ahead and go to your favorite platform. We're probably already there. And if we're not there, go to your second favorite platform. That's probably where you could find us. Coming up next, of course, for those of you who are members, we do have the after show. That's where we sit down live, and possibly only me, but we talk about whatever's on your mind, questions and answers. We might talk about this case. We've done that before. I'll take your phone calls. We'll play clips and have a good time. That's for members only. That's the after show. That's coming up live next on this channel. And Drew, it's been a heck of an episode. I like this one. I like a good mystery as much as I want Marissa Carmichael to be found and to be found safe. Missing persons cases always provoke a lot of interest and intrigue, but the armchair detectives out there and the talking heads are not doing Marissa any favors.
No, they're not. I mean, if you want to do that, like, pour your heart and soul into helping find her. Don't pour your heart and soul into speculating to be right, to be the first one to be right.
Yeah. All right. We'll catch you back here on another episode of the Comm Center next week.
Thurman Thomas.
I never have one ready to go. I think of all these guys during the week, and then it's like, oh, I should say this. I don't know. Is Scott Norwood a good one for this week?
I was going to say Scott Norwood.
Scott Norwood.